Okay, so here's the thing. I'm driving home from a graduation as of yesterday, or about to. I'm in Virginia, and I live nowhere near that. And it's a 6-hour car drive. So whenever I go and, of course, naturally take that one last check of Twitter before going in a car for 6 hours, I'm like, well, this is probably nothing's gonna happen. It's a Saturday. I couldn't have been more wrong. We literally, no exaggeration, got some of the biggest Call of Duty news in years. Like, honestly, probably in over a decade. It's mind-boggling to me. And of course, as a result, because I was driving home, I didn't get to cover this last night. You may have already seen your bits and pieces here of it from your other favorite creators. That's totally cool, but I want to give you my thoughts and opinions on all of this and break it all down for you guys that may not have. So in this video today, we're going to be taking a look at all of that, what actually happened, the implications, what it means, and where we go from here, because honestly, it's a wild ride. If you end up taking a look over at Kotaku, there's an article that ends up debuting what is titled Sources Call of Duty 2020 in Upheaval as Treyarch Takes Over. Plans Black Ops 5. So, yeah. Black Ops 5 got confirmed before this upcoming year's title, and the story just makes it even crazier. Now, here's the thing. Jason Schreier is an insanely good reporter. He is one of the ones in the video game industry that honestly I think that I've seen a very, very, very good track record here. I could probably count the number of times, if any, there's been any single sort of error in reporting, and especially with the Call of Duty stuff as of lately, he's been spot on. Next year's Call of Duty has gone through a major upheaval, as publisher Activision informed developers this week that studios Raven and Sledgehammer, which had until now led the project, will no longer be in charge. Instead, according to 3 people familiar with the goings-on at the company, Treyarch will lead development on a new Black Ops for 2020. Going on a little further, it says for 2020, Activision had originally switched things up, assigning the Wisconsin-based support studio Raven to take a leadership role alongside Sledgehammer to make a Call of Duty game set in the Cold War, likely involving Vietnam. As of very recently, that changed. Now Treyarch, based in Santa Monica, California, is in charge of leading Call of Duty Black Ops 5. Now here's the thing, man, it gets even crazier. Some of the stuff detailed, again, is just, where did this come from? It dropped literally out of nowhere on a Saturday. So here's what it is. According to those briefed on the overhaul, Treyarch will take creative leadership on this new Black Ops, while Raven and Sledgehammer will serve as support studios for the game, transforming their work they've done on their own single-player story mode into a campaign for Black Ops 5, which will also be set in the Cold War. It will likely be a cross-generation game to coincide with the launch of the next PlayStation and Xbox, which are also expected in the fall of 2020. What this means is that rather than getting 3 years to make their next game after Black Ops 4, Treyarch will have just 2. Some of the companies say they're not pleased about that, and they're already bracing for brutal overtime hours like they faced last year on Black Ops 4. Others have told Kotaku they're excited about the change, as they have a solid game plan that isn't likely to change drastically, unlike their last 2 projects. We'll have more to share about Treyarch and the development of Black Ops 4 in the coming weeks, which really, really hints at there truly being something wrong, like a lot of the community theorized for quite some time, given the lackluster support in some regards for Black Ops 4, and of course that whole theory of maybe the major changeover that happened late into development. We don't know exactly, but it seems like we will have some insight into that as of recently, but it continues on saying this news comes during a strange time for Activision and Call of Duty. Although Black Ops 4 sold well at first, we've heard that it hasn't quite had the revenue tail that Activision's bean counters were hoping to see. Internally, Activision executives have started talking about embracing free-to-play as a revenue model, and 3 sources say are looking into offering a free-to-play component for this year's new Modern Warfare, although the specifics may not be finalized yet. Some within Activision have remained resistant to the idea. What in the world is happening? And it continues. The past year has also been rough for San Francisco-based Sledgehammer Games. In February of 2018, Kotaku broke the news that Sledgehammer's co-founders Michael Condrey and Glenn Schofield had left the studio. That's old news. We've known about that for quite some time, and they've gone on even further after that. They initially had those executive duties, as this article later describes, but that was something that it was kind of just buying out their contracts. Earlier this year, though, Condrey started a new Silicon Valley studio with the publisher 2K, where he's recruiting dozens of Sledgehammer Sledgehammer staff. The studio has been hemorrhaging employees over the last few months, much to the dismay of those who remain. One primary reason behind this Call of Duty upheaval, according to two people familiar with the happenings at Activision, is the tension between Sledgehammer and Raven, whose staff are said to have argued frequently during the past year of development on Call of Duty 2020. Two people familiar with the project described it as a mess. Now both studios will serve as support for Treyarch as the publisher prepares to release Black Ops 5. What in the world? Like I said, I don't think that there has been anything this insane in Call of Duty news in literally the last half decade, maybe even longer. This is absolutely insane, no matter what way you spin it, and it has implications that could well reach beyond just this next year after Infinity Ward's title. It could reach well beyond 2020. So to recap and kind of break down specific points, the bombshell news. Firstly, Raven was going to be the primary developer, not Sledgehammer. I'll come back to why this surprises me in a little bit because it ties in with what I want to talk about with the game cycle going forward. But a Vietnam and Cold War era game was in the works. Honestly, I kind of had this feeling that it would because Sledgehammer has this thing for Vietnam, and they had a project, whether you know about it or not, that was actually in the works as a third-person Vietnam-based Call of Duty before they got brought on to work as a supporting role within Modern Warfare 3. But now Treyarch are taking the reins over it because between hemorrhaging studio employees and also the fact that, while Raven and them weren't getting along, it's out of their control now. The next big point is Black Ops 5, man, said multiple times. It could easily be a code name or an inference because, well, we've seen Black Ops 1, 2, 3, and 4, but it's said pretty prominently and with conviction, so Black Ops 5 may actually be a thing for real. Free-to-play also was mentioned and dropped, and that's a bombshell in itself. Call of Duty has been an egregious moneymaker for Activision over the past decade or so, when we've seen, especially as of recent years, the microtransaction and monetization has been ramped up to 11. And so, therefore, free-to-play has almost seemed absolutely asinine, but with COD Mobile being free-to-play and that being something that's probably going to make a ton of money, and of course, maybe this is why we see the egregious system in Black Ops 4. It's a beta of sorts. They're seeing what makes them money individually if they were to completely remove that entry barrier of $60. That could be something, and what's even crazier is it's even mentioned as early as this year. What if just out of nowhere, this entire year is a free-to-play year and just the microtransactions are what we see now makes the revenue for Activision? It has that sort of free-to-play and mobile vibe and mentality to it. I'm still trying to put the wires together in my mind. I'm still a day later trying to process all of this. So truly, what does this mean for 2020? Well, honestly, it's probably the closest we'll ever get to that whole pipe dream of every developer coming together and working on one specific title. Everyone in that main fold outside of Infinity Ward is going to be working on 2020. We, of course, have those smaller support developing studios like High Moon still out there, Beanox still out there, contracted in some regards, but those aren't the main studios that end up working getting all the spotlight. So when people think about COD Online or COD Mobile coming together, putting the best things of every single game all in one and supporting that for year on end, this is probably the closest we're going to get to this on console. COD Mobile has that on mobile devices, Android, and soon iOS as well. But for console, that's a whole different story, and honestly, probably a pipe dream, but this may be the closest that we get. In terms of actual development, I have absolutely no idea because like we said in this article, recapped it here a little bit, is that they are going to take the base workings of this Treyarch, Sledgehammer, and Raven game, seemingly basing it off the Cold War. I would imagine then Treyarch kind of just is the one to use that lasso, pull it all together, and then just wrap it all up into one big bow-tied gift box, in which maybe they finish the MP on it, maybe they finish the zombies on it, if that's going to be a thing. Maybe we end up seeing a little more sectionalized pieces here with this, where Treyarch takes MP, Raven takes that co-op game mode, or maybe even, I don't think that it'll be this, but just for theory's sake, that Battle Royale game mode, and then Sledgehammer works on the single player. Maybe it's compartmentalized like that to where we actually do have a really full product. But when you consider the fact that Treyarch now have to turn around from Black Ops 4 and not in a 3-year development cycle, but at the very best, a year and a half, churn out a product that is supposed to be top tier, AAA level caliber gameplay, even if you have the absolute most faith in Treyarch, which honestly, I do. Black Ops 4 has had its fair share of missteps, but I think this kind of now explains a little bit about what was going on behind the scenes. Maybe not all of it, but it at least has a little bit more implications and kind of points the finger a little further here at that. Even if you have the most faith in Treyarch in the entire world, it's still concerning. Because you're taking a game that has a 3-year development cycle and taking it down to, at most, 1.5 years. So I guess we'll see. I think that honestly, if you end up having 3 studios working on each individual one portion of that project, it becomes something that is definitely viable. But again, just as viable as it is, it does walk that fine line of, holy crap, what if this is an unfinished mess? I have the absolute utmost respect for every single developer at every single one of these studios mentioned, but it's just an absolute absurd task to completely uproot everything and then shift it off and change focus and change entire structure. So that's something that's absolutely crazy. But that said, where does this then go from the game cycle here going forward? Because this is the next big question to me. If we have Infinity Ward as of this upcoming year in 2019, we just had Black Ops 4 and Treyarch for 2018. Where does that then leave us for after 2020, where Treyarch has to take a jump up in that calendar where they were supposedly probably thinking about their next title in 2021? Where does that take us then here for this? Does this remove the 3-year cycle that we've had in place since Advanced Warfare? Does this then bring it back down to a 2-year dev cycle with support roles of Sledgehammer and Raven, with that sort of demotion happening to Sledge? Honestly, coming back to the earlier mention of Raven as the primary and Sledge as support, I was curious about this to begin with, because to my knowledge, Raven is exponentially smaller than that of Sledgehammer in terms of not only just size, but also the amount of people working there. So it was kind of weird to begin with to me to let them leapfrog, and if anything, I would have imagined Raven getting their own title in the way of, well, giving it a 4-year game cycle. And really, I get the counter argument for that it's really hard to gauge how well a product will do almost half a decade out from its launch. But at the same time, I was talking with my friends Ink Slasher and Who's Immortal last night, and really, I think that I'd be cool with a 4-year game cycle. Maybe at that point, we'd actually get a full-on finished product, because it seems like every single year in the past, I don't know, 4 years or so, there's been that one area of at least every game where it's like, is this really finished? Is this really what you guys were working on the whole time? And so if that's the case, maybe that super polished, super finished thing is what is then utilized in a 4-year cycle, but it doesn't seem like we're going with that. Although I really wouldn't care about trying to keep up with the current trends if that was the main argument against it, because honestly, COD back in the day, Modern Warfare, World at War, Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops, Modern Warfare 3, Black Ops 2, those were all great because they did their own thing. They didn't give a damn about the rest of the industry. They were making their own waves and they were making them themselves. So in that sense, if there's something that you want to take from the current industry that's working really well, say like the Battle Pass mechanic with a free and paid option with that, then implement that. That is not as in-depth as making an entire game based off of what you think will work well. But coming back to it, I wouldn't be surprised if we do shift back to a 2-year dev cycle, or maybe this is just a road bump in the long-term road for Call of Duty where everything gets back to normal. Maybe Sledgehammer then is added on in 2022 for their own project again to get back to that normal 3 years, with Treyarch taking 2020 with Sledgehammer and Raven as that support role, 2021 Infinity Ward, and then back to normal at that point. Maybe that's what happens, but I guess we'll see in time. But for now, wow. But ultimately, man, like, this is honestly crazy. This is the biggest thing that we've seen in absolute years. So from this, I want to get your thoughts and feedback here on it. What do you guys think here about this entire situation? Do you think it's good that maybe Black Ops 5 is going to be happening as of 2020 with the support roles of 2 different major dev studios? Do you think that maybe we can have a massive product at that? Or do you think it might fall a little short because of such a small time for development? Love to get your thoughts and feedback down there in the comment section down below. Again, we're going to continue the discussion in Tuesday's video, probably going a little more in depth and talking a little more so about the implications this has for Black Ops 4 and if it explains a lot of what we can see as issues right now. But I'd love to get your thoughts and feedback down there in the comment section down below. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you drop a like down below. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Black Ops 4 and what seemingly is Modern Warfare 4 by this article, and also Black Ops 5. Hit that subscribe button if you're interested in any information on anything in these 3 games, of course, and anything else Call of Duty related. If you guys also want to follow me over on Twitter and Instagram, those are the best places to get connected outside. I used to practically live on both those. So if you guys want to strike up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, link is down there in the description below. But let's end out with, thank you guys all so much for watching. Mine's the best espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.